Big thanks to Global Conservation for the saddles. And the anti-poaching, the horse unit has done extremely well. We've cut our poaching right down. I think since the horses have come and we're having maybe 1 or 2 contacts a month. But what we are getting are arrests. We're managing to catch the guys. With the speed of the horses, the guys aren't managing to get away from us. So we really, on that side of things, we're getting some good convictions, and the guys are staying off the reserve now, and purely that's because of the horses. We're able to, in this terrain of 7,000 hectares, we've got 4 to 5 horses going out every morning, and it's done us really well. Even the anti-poaching unit, the guys are a lot happier. I think to walk up and down these mountains is a hell of a task, and you've got a 55-kilometer boundary fence to patrol on foot. It's just not doable.
What people don't understand, it's not like I can just run to a tack store if I'm missing something or needing something. In fact, getting these particular saddles to this particular reserve took a cast of a lot of people. I was in a different part of KwaZulu-Natal, so the Project Rhino people actually picked them up from the tack store, transported them to another city, so Ant from this reserve could then pick them up, saving me about 10 hours of driving probably. So it's just, again, all of these little pieces of people that are willing to help and move tack throughout or whatever we need to make these things happen. You certainly couldn't do it alone. This place is too vast, and we don't have a state line tack or a broken horn right around the corner. Everything is so far away. So, I was here a year ago, and the only thing that they requested from us was saddles, because saddles are very expensive here. So being able to drop in here and find this great partner in Unicorn Tack was something that I had been thinking about for almost a year, of how we could do it in Africa. How do we find a partner in Africa that can help us source some of this tack cheaper? And so that happened, from a year ago. That is a great feeling, to have all the pieces fall into place, to actually be able to deliver on the promise that Global Conservation Force would come back and give them these saddles. And that is all due to our donors. It's all due to fundraising. These specific saddles were purchased from the World Rhino Day fundraiser, the LA version, which is also, we partner with the AAZK, which is the Association of American Zookeepers. We have a great partnership with them. So it just shows like all these different entities coming together, whether it's an NPO or just a donor or another establishment.
For joining us tonight. We just wanted to spend a few minutes to tell you a little bit about horses and conservation. The last few years we've been working really hard on supporting some mounted units in South Africa, and with us tonight we have Roxane Losey, who is one of our directors and the lead on our mounted anti-poaching units. So Rox, hey, can you start off maybe with telling us a little bit about kind of the history of horses used in conservation in South Africa?
Yes, it's a little known fact, I think. I learned this, in fact, when I was in KwaZulu-Natal with Grant Folds. In the early 60s, they were starting to round up a lot of the rhinos to come into captive situations, especially European zoos and United States zoos. That was, of course, after they had bolstered the population in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The white rhino population was nearly decimated. And so they started this great repopulation. And by 1960, they had it almost not overpopulated, but they were certainly to capacity, and especially Iflozi and Shishlui. So they used to round these rhino up by using horses. They would actually dart rhino from horseback, which is a little bit crazy in my mind, to be honest with you, but it just shows the versatility has always been there with horses. And of course, as Land Rovers came about and helicopters and the like, it got much easier, probably far more expensive, but a lot easier, obviously, to get the rhino captured. But the point in that is the horses have always been a conservation tool. They just got sort of played out with technology. So here we are back in now 2017, the mid 2018, whatever. And these horse units are starting to spring up, or have been springing up as a way to do just that, again, is to protect rhino, do conservation. And in many ways, especially now when we're sitting in the middle of this pandemic where fuel budgets have been just completely decimated by no guests, APUs being cut and fuel budget being cut, the horses are circling back around to being a very important part of conservation.
Right. So they've got on patrol 3 different methods normally, right? So you've got foot patrol, vehicle patrol, whether it be, kind of the Jeeps, cars, Land Rovers, or quad kind of thing, and then you've got the horses. So I would imagine the various types of patrol all have their pros and cons, right? So can you talk a little bit about all of the benefits that the horse patrols have over, say, foot patrol and vehicle patrol?
Sure. Of course, horses, they couldn't, we call them, the original all-terrain vehicle. Before there was a quad, before there were motorcycles, there was a horse. So they can go pretty much everywhere. Anywhere that, if you think about it, anywhere a zebra can go, anywhere a rhino can go, anywhere any hoofstock can go, a horse can go as well. And they can follow those same pathways where a vehicle certainly can't. Even a motorcycle or a quad could be challenged in those ways. And they also seem to have quite a lot of ability, obviously, to get, any hoofstock sees a horse as a hoofstock. They don't see like a horse and a rider. They see us as sort of one entity, and they smell it sort of as one entity. So as we're approaching a rhino or approaching any type of game, we can get far closer, quicker without that, like the breakdown, the time that it would take to get them acclimated to a horse is far less than a vehicle, for example. And you have a different height, obviously, than a foot patrol. You're up above. And if you do, as Anthony said at the video in the beginning from Jugela, when they come upon poachers before, sometimes the poachers would run. They're mostly dog poachers there. They use dogs for snare poaching and the like. But anyway, they would run. And oftentimes the foot patrols would lose them. So in the beginning, when the horses started coming on board, they would try to run, and the guys would catch them easily on the horses. And now they are not as big of a target because nobody wants to deal with that. Horses can be really intimidating if you've not been around them. Right. And so again, especially what he's seen is when they start to take chase with the horses, the guys just lay down. They just give up. So they're a lot quicker than a foot patrol. Obviously not as a vehicle, but you're going to hear a vehicle coming. You're not going to hear a horse coming.
Right, which is nice. And I can imagine they leave less of an ecological footprint as well. Not kind of, say if they were giving chase via vehicle and, going through the bush and whatnot, I would imagine that would do a lot of damage versus a horse where.
Oh yeah, the ecological footprint. Even a lot of the reserves now, even their APU guys aren't necessarily going off-roading. You think they're patrolling all over the place, and that's not necessarily true. They're going to do their foot patrols that way. But, if you're just going to continue to drive all over the plant life, you're not going to have much plant life left for the animals to eat or to have a, beautiful savanna or whatever. And the horses, they can go anywhere.
Right. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
check that out. It's one of my favorite photos.
I want to quickly, this photo was really a moment that I knew that this particular unit, it was going to work. This was the first day that we were out on the reserve with the APU guys and a couple of important players to the project. And as we were riding, one of the rangers had the hugest grin on his face, and I remember looking back behind me and seeing this huge grin on our, he's now one of our lead rangers, mounted rangers. And I won't use the expletive, but he was, this is awesome. We can never get close to these animals like this in a truck. And what was interesting in the beginning, these giraffe were all back in the bush. All those trees back there, you see, they were all back there, and you could just see them from heads up. And as we started to ride alongside of them, they all started to creep. There was probably about 26 giraffe that started to creep out of the bush and start to follow along with us. And that was, I will never forget that moment, because I knew this is going to work.
That's really cool. And I mean, you're a horse person, I'm a horse person, so we understand the bond one can have with their horses. So the rangers, out there being all excited and spending that much time, what kind of feedback have they been given on their experiences, on what the horses bring to their patrol for them, kind of more personally and not just professionally?
Yeah, the horses, the way we set it up, at least, and now, mind you, like in a really hot zone area, like up at KZN, sometimes the guys, they're just getting on a horse maybe for the first time, and off they go, and they just do the best they can with their horse. And it's a little different than the way we set it up, especially in the Eastern Cape, is we've really set it up for the rangers and their horses to be partners. So we try to team up a ranger with a horse, and they become teammates, basically. And they get that bond together. And so they trust just like they would trust a human or a canine unit. And the horse also trusts their rider. A lot of these horses might not do something if I got on them, but if their ranger gets on them, they're going to do anything for them. So we do try to foster that. It's not always possible, but we've been lucky to be able to do that, where they can be partners. We did unfortunately lose one of our horses this year to a bad accident. And for example, his partner, his ranger, it was just as traumatizing to him as if one of his human brothers would have died. It was very traumatic to me too. But for our rangers that lost his partner, it was really, really traumatic. So they do get this incredible bond.
Awesome. It's one of my favorite parts is hearing all the ranger stories, how happy they are and how much they're enjoying it. And it's kind of, almost in a similar vein, right? They're kind of creating a wonderful bridge with the community as well, too, right? Having the horses and the mounted patrols, kind of local there to a lot of the communities that surround the reserves, right? Like, you've got some really great stories, not only of kind of organized events, but, the just random stories of my favorite, one of them being the two women. I can't remember what they do, but tell us about some of the experiences you've had with the community outreach. Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories. I think everyone will like this one.
Yeah, those two ladies. I'll circle back. I'll circle back. In the very first trip, I went out in 2017 to kind of start up this unit. We were utilizing the horses that were on that particular property, which was separate from the APU base at the time. But we started using some of the safari horse trails, trail horses, to get us started, and they were at this other reserve. And I went there for 42 days in a row to work with the horses, various horses. I was also breaking some of their younger horses for them to backfill the horses we would be using on the patrols. But anyway, so I was there for 42 days working with the horses. I would come in, they kind of gave me free range of the place, which was amazing. And I did all my horse work, and I'd be there for hours. And I'd often see these women and several others that were some of the laundry ladies for that particular, I don't want to say reserve, but for that particular lodge. And they would always peek their heads out, and they would kind of wave, and really shy. And now, mind you, they saw horses every single day. With the horse trails, they were always like milling around, grazing and stuff. And they never came up, and they never approached me. And I thought maybe a language barrier, or they didn't know who I was or whatever. I didn't even know if they spoke much English, to be honest. But anyway, I went back the following year, or I think about 6 months later, and I was still working at that same place. And we also had at this a school, a primary school, we had a horse day. So we took all of those same horses from that horse trails and took them down to the school and let the kids ride them. And we'd also moved some of our APU horses to the base, where some of those same children that go to that school live. And so they really, those horses were their horses, those APU horses. And we took them to the school that day. And those little girls and the couple of boys that live on, it's called Leuenbosch. So they live there. They were like, this is Bev, and this is my horse. They were so proud that those they knew the horses, and all the other kids that didn't live in that particular village, they kind of had one up on them, right? So it's really funny to watch and interesting to see. And as I'm circling back around in this story, we did the project down at the school. A few days later, I had taken the horse in the photo over to ride out on that reserve that doesn't have the dangerous game. And I came back, and the women came running out, and I was a little shocked at what was happening. They came running out to me, and they had their they wanted a photo with the horse. And I thought, oh, I'll just take this photo with them. That's cool. Like, this is amazing. This is happening. And then just hugging the horse. And, so you see how close to the picture they were all to this horse all of a sudden. And they're usually horrified of the horses. And I was just, what is happening right now? This is amazing. But I could not, for the life of me, figure out what was being presented in front of me. And I later spoke to the owner of that particular property and of that piece of the reserve. And I told him the same story that happened. I showed him the picture, and he got the biggest grin on his face, and he said their names and whatnot. And he's like, oh yeah, they never come out to the horses. He goes but their kids go to the school. So those, we talk about the kids being our future and our future moving forward with conservation, and we must teach them the importance of wildlife and the importance of animals and their heritage around them that they don't even realize is so important to them because they don't get to see it up close. They led the way that day. They obviously went home and told their parents that the horses, and they got to ride, and it was amazing, and all of these things. And all of a sudden, then those women that I had been there for 40 days and they never poked their head out, came running up to this horse, not even afraid of it, and had their hands all over her. And it was so incredible. And again, it was one of those moments where I went, we always knew the horses could be that bridge for community. We always knew horses are magic. You know that. Mm-hmm. Sally, you know that. And I always knew, like, these children are going to bond to those horses. I knew it. And to see the adults also starting to bond and care about the horses, it's just one more step for them to, they don't look at animals like we do in wildlife. They're beasts of burden, they're food, they're a way to make money. And that's okay. It's culture. It's different than us. But it's just showing them that it can be, they need to be cared for. And that's hard to do unless you can show them like something like a horse,
Right. Start to make that connection. If you make it with one animal, and then, you learn, oh, hey, they're pretty incredible. What do these other species have?
Exactly.
Yep.
And not everyone can, they're not going to be able to go up and pet a rhino or something. But when those little girls that would help us come out, and they would help us give baths to the APU horses, and you could see each time I would go back, their comfort level and care and commitment and their ownership, that those were their horses. And so just the next step of those are my rhinos. Those are my giraffe. You can't come harm them. You can't come hurt them. Those belong to us.
Yeah, the sense of pride and kind of a sense of place, because those animals are in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think we have a clip actually that was from my very first trip that I knew this was going to happen. In fact, the fellow that filmed it for us, Ben Wallace, is a really good friend of mine and great wildlife photographer and filmographer. And I told him, get your camera ready, because this was the very first day that we had the horses at the new APU base, and the village sits right next to where we had the horses. And I knew it was coming. I knew it because I know horses, and I know their power and their magic, especially with children. So I have a clip that we want to show about that very, very first day when I was giving one of the rangers a lesson. I think it should be hopefully coming up in a moment. Maybe.
Anticipation.
Hey, technology.
Technology.
Wow.
So do they have, while we're waiting for that to load,
When this
is there...
crisis started taking hold back in 2008, let's say, if someone would have been starting this education and this message to the children in the communities, or even the adults in the communities, way back in 2008, stop poachers and protect your rhino, and this reserve is here for all of you, and come see the rhino, so they cared about it, we may have been touching the core market or the core age group of what is now some of our poachers. So if you think in 2008, they're children, perhaps they've turned to poaching as an adult, and maybe there was, even if you've reached one that decides that's not my path, I want to be a ranger, or I want to be a game driver at a reserve, or find a better way. And there are actually several examples of that I've run into, of even ex-poachers that have kind of found a way to now want to protect the rhino.
So that wasn't exactly the clip, and I do know we have the other one in queue, but that video, I would like to talk about a little bit as well. That was up in KwaZulu-Natal area, and I was fortunate to be involved with the Project Rhino, where they go to these schools and they give these kids something. It's a competition basically, and they color a photo and they talk about what rhinos mean to them, and the thing that I'll never forget about that is, on that piece of paper, it says, have you ever seen a rhino? And 99% of them, it says no. And that is so heartbreaking to me, like truly heartbreaking, that these kids that live there, I have seen more rhino than them. And how can they protect that? How can they protect what they don't even know, they can't even see? So that's something that this Project Rhino does, is the kids that actually are the winners of the project, they get to go out into the reserve, and up there it's usually like in Louis, they take them at the cost of Project Rhino to go out and have a proper game drive, and they do it now in the Eastern Cape as well. And that's what it's going to take. How do you protect what you don't even, why do you care? Why would you care about a rhino? You've never even seen one. So there's things like that are going, and that also hit me about, man, if somebody would have started this 20 years ago, I mean, really, really started it. There were people doing it, of course, but I mean, in big force before this issue even got started, like back in 2008 when poaching really took off again. Mm-hmm. If somebody would have been there doing that, some of these poachers of today maybe wouldn't have become that. And that's also what we're doing moving forward, is touching these kids so they know, like, or maybe they're going to say something, hey, I saw somebody in the village. I don't think they belong here. And, the rhinos can be better protected even if a kid says something.
Right.
So it does look like we have the video of that I was speaking of earlier, about this first day of the horses on the reserve. And again, that proved everything that we thought about horses being able to reach out to the community in a very organic way.
Yeah, just, I mean, the connection's unbelievable. So another, well, we can talk about this after, but while we're waiting for the video to freeze,
that's probably what's happening, actually. The video is waiting for it to freeze.
So for the horses do, and I'm kind of getting really technical here, but this is probably more from out of my own curiosity, just being, a horse person. Are there specific breeds found in Africa that are best used for patrol? Kind of like, there's certain breeds used for different types of other equestrian sports, like, or is it purely based on the animal's temperament and that kind of thing? Like, what makes a good patrol horse, basically?
Oh, it's a bit like here. I don't think they have the huge variance of breeds, but a lot of the horses that we come across, they're called Boer, which is from the Boer War, of course. That's when horses came over and they intermingled with the local horses, if you will, and they made these really sturdy, hardy, kind of small horses, but like really agile, and they're I don't even want to say they're like a tiny little quarter horse drafty thing. But they're amazing, and they got little mule feet. They can walk on rocks. The first time we went riding, I was all, oh, this horse is going to be so lame tomorrow. All of these rocks, and they're just going down these sheer face rocks like nothing. They have tried to use some thoroughbreds because they do have horse racing in South Africa, and I know some places have done off the track racehorse rescues that has worked, to a varying degree. But a lot of it doesn't really matter the breed. It is really about that temperament and, being really sound and very sound footed. And that's, they have to have good feet there. If they don't have a good foot, you're kind of doomed.
Yeah. And I would imagine that, you don't want a super large horse because, being on patrol, you'll want to jump on and off quickly and things like that. Yeah. You want to make it easy for the rangers. So.
Yeah, they can't be tiny because some of the guys are a little bigger. But I mean, up at our one unit, we don't really supply horses too. We've always just supplied them with a lot of gear. They had a very active unit, and this was one of Grant Fold's really heart projects of KZN. They got a donated horse that was a little girl's, like a show pony.
Oh.
And he's a really beautiful Appaloosa. I can't think of his name right now. So he was living the high life, at some she show pony club, and he got dropped right into the middle of KwaZulu-Natal to become a mounted horse. And I remember them telling me that they had him out going through there he is right there. They had him going through like a giant herd of elephants in like 2 weeks or something. And I was all, oh my gosh, this poor horse is probably like, what just happened to me? But that shows, that horse, he didn't have any game experience. We usually try to get them used to game before we have our rangers. That was part of what I was doing out there, was taking all the hard falls on the first ride out with you know what the scariest animal is for a horse, Sally?
Out there or in general?
Out there.
Oh gosh. Probably something little and fast that darts in and out of bushes.
No, ostriches.
Oh well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
They'll ride right up to a giraffe, no problem. But boy, they see those big birds and they're all, I can't do that.
And I should have known that. My horses live next door to emus, and they were a little
horrifying. But anyway, I thought that was a great story that just shows the temperament. This horse had never seen any kind of game, and these guys were just they kind of have to do it up there. They don't have a lot of time for the preemptive training. They've got to get out there and roll because that's a hot zone. And there he went out in the middle of a, herd of elephants. All right. All right. It looks like we actually do have our video ready to go. So let's see that.
Well, I was giving a lesson to one of our mounted rangers today. One of the most amazing but not surprising phenoms sort of took place. All of the local village children ran out to see what we were up to, wanted to be part of what we were doing. It's really quite a draw. Horses are such a draw for children. It gives us a lot of hope, not only for using these horses as an anti-poaching unit, but also to be able to reach out to communities in a positive way to spread the message about anti-poaching and using these horses also in that way to sort of bridge the gap.
So awesome. I'm a little teary-eyed.
I know. I every time I see that one, it gets me to this day, and I've seen it a lot, obviously, and I lived it that day, and it's that was from 2017, and it was again one of those moments where you go, everything that we thought above and beyond APU, they proved it to me right there on day one. That and a lot of those children in that video, every time I would go back, they always asking about me, their parents, when I'd come back to that particular village. A lot of their parents worked in the lodge, and they were always like, oh, they can't wait for you to come back, Roxane. And because, we would spend time with the horses, and especially, the little girls, of course, they wanted to be part of it and down there and helping us with the horses and always up in it. And it was a really good thing. And it gave them something to look forward to. And what I also realized by my being there is they were looking forward to me coming back because I would spend time with them with the horses, but also because they know like somebody out there cares.
Right.
You know, it's somebody coming in from afar, and they would say that to me all the time. Are you here on vacation? You know, why do you come here and work so hard? And how much they appreciated it that, you know, when I go or Mike goes or any one of the GCF people go there, you know, they it's just unfathomable to them that we are taking our time to go there to help them. You know, they because they have to live so in the moment and, you know, just kind of surviving in a lot of ways.
Right.
Some of those villages, they're, you know, they're pretty poor. So it's unfathomable to them that we go there to try to help them. And it's, believe me, it is greatly appreciated. And every time I go there, they are so thankful and so grateful. And it's not just me. I'm not, you know, like, oh, they think I'm the best. It's everybody. It's everybody that supports us. It's even people in GCF that are volunteers that haven't gotten to go over there and do something cool, that still support us so much, and our donors. I mean, it's like, it's the cumulative. I just get to, I'm fortunate to be one of the ones that gets to go live the dream, you know, and get the positive feedback. But I wish I could share that feeling with every single person that has supported us.
Right. That's awesome. Well, and you touched upon something too, that another aspect of the kind of the community outreach is, you know, just like the lodges and the tourism creates jobs and opportunity, with the popularity of mounted units growing, I mean, that also creates opportunity for jobs for local community members too, does it not?
Oh, 100%. My first trip there, just in the very shortest of terms, was, you know, we had to build all kinds of infrastructure, and I was able to do a lot of that, but it also fell on the reserve. So even some of their guys have their jobs, so they would get kind of day laborers, if you will, that maybe didn't have a full-time job. So even in the very short term of just supplying day labor rate for the guys that were building the pastures for us is one thing. And then from there, it kind of branched out. In 2019, I was able to secure a grant through the Los Angeles Zoo, which was very generous of them. And the whole meat of that grant was to actually employ a community member to be the horse groom for that particular unit. The rangers were doing a lot of it, and they were doing all of it. They were doing all of the feeding, all of the care, NB and APU, foot patrol, riding patrol. They were sort of doing everything. And so it was really apparent they needed some help. And so I wrote this grant for the fella from the community that they had chosen. And he'd sort of had a rough go. He had some struggles, as a lot in the communities. There's a lot of alcoholism and the such, just to be frank. And it's hard for some of these people to get out of it and get a full-time job and hold it down, just by means of just not having anything to look forward to. Right. And they just fall into this circle, and it's unfortunately what it is. But it was really incredible that this guy was able to find something that he found such joy in, that he showed up for work every day. And we were able to do that. And we were able to do that because of this grant from the LA Zoo, to give this guy, to be able to pay him. It's something that the reserve would have loved to have been able to employ him, but, you know, they have such a tight budget. They couldn't have it in their budget to pay him. So we were able to do that. And he started becoming sort of a pillar in the community in a way that people were all, hey, how did you get that job? And I want to work too. And I want that kind of job. And it's sort of started keeping him on the straight and narrow as well, that he had something he really cared about. He really cared about the Rangers, and he really cared about those horses. And he wants to himself try to make it so he could be like a mounted ranger, you know. So here's this young guy that sort of had no direction and was kind of going down a bad path. Mm-hmm. And it sort of gave him something to really strive for, and to see that conservation jobs, protecting the rhino, can also make my life better. Mm-hmm. You know, not only for the benefit of the rhinos and the wildlife, that it can uplift my life. And you have to have the communities. We can throw all the money at this we want to. We can throw all the anti-poaching, we can throw all the drones, the horses, the trucks, you name it. We could do it all. But if you don't have the community buy-in, and if you don't have their eyes and their information and just their change in attitude for their own children, like, don't go down that path, let's get you a really good job. You don't have to be a poacher, or, you don't have to fail. There's things out there for you. It's really, really important to support the communities, because again, we can throw everything at it. But I think you'll see this one's going to get you too. I promise you, it gets me every time. The positive change that can happen for being able to support jobs within some of these communities.
Hi, this is Litemba. I'm the guy who care about the horses. I'm grooming the horses, feeding them with pellets, put fly spray. I really, really care about them. I like them because they can hear me when I'm talking to them. They like human beings to me. They can listen to me. Yes, I do enjoy. And also I want to learn how to ride the horses properly. Thank you, GCF, for this opportunity. I really, really appreciate this job.
That's so great.
That one's, that one makes me very happy in a lot of ways. And I mean, just if you see even some of the village kids, they want to be around Latimba now. Like they want to go and be and help and learn. And the thing that our guys, our APU guys, as good as they are with the kids in the villages, they don't live that culture.
Right.
They can speak the language, but they can't speak the culture. And having a guy like that on any one of these reserves that can also be another bridge to the community, the horses, and pulling them in and showing success. That is another, like, there is no dollar value on that. This, like a guy like Latimba that has lifted up and he's bringing these little children to see, like, hey, that guy didn't even have a job and he's doing this really cool thing. I can do that too.
Right. So awesome. They are magical. Yes, we have to love them. So, any other great stories you have?
Hi. Boy, I'm sure I have a lot of very good stories that I can never think of unless I'm just like talking about it or somebody asks me a question about what it was like or what I was doing. And I guess one other thing I could also say is for horse people that may be watching, I know you're sitting there going, that's so cool. I want to go do this. How can I go do this? And we are hopefully, we had a plan for 2020 that obviously didn't work out. But in 2021, we're hoping to get another reserve on board with a mounted unit, and also be able to have the ability to have volunteers go over and, obviously for a price, because we have to be able to support the unit. And part of that price would be to support the anti-poaching units as well. But it's not going to be a ridiculous amount of money for a trip to do something cool in Africa. But we are trying to set it up so we can get people kind of doing what I did, maybe not as grassroots and ground up as I was doing, but trying to give them that opportunity to feel like they're really. It's one thing to go there on safari. It's another thing to go there and get your hands dirty and not be staying in a 5-star safari camp, when you're just sort of staying in this little dorm room and helping. And there's nothing like it. I really do recommend it. But again, we're trying to get that started. There's going to be more details to follow, of course. But what I wanted to tell the horse people that think, this is going to be the best vacation of my life. It is not that. I mean, it is, but it's when I went the first time to go and work, I had no idea what I was stepping into. And, you think about all of the things we have here to maybe like to break horses or get them going under saddle. And when I got there was sort of some pens, wire pens. There's no round pen, no really proper facilities, if you will. There was sort of a little place to put tack. And, you know, some of these horses that were coming right off the range, they were 2 years old and had never even had really a halter on them. So I forgot that I wasn't 18, you know, and I used to be able to do that kind of thing. So here I was at 40 something out there with a 2-year-old giant heavy bodied quarter horse, halter breaking her. So we got it done. She was wonderful. It was really fun, but it's not what you think it is. It's you have to really improvise. I know I saw a photo flash up a while back when we were up in another reserve that's starting called Laziba, and we hadn't even know where to put the horses. So the guys and we got together and we basically took this old airplane hangar, big, beautiful building, a big, beautiful building that had a bunch of dead vehicles and tractors, and it was just sitting there. And they managed to pull all that stuff out of there, and we managed to create a little stable out of this existing building. And so you have to be really creative. It's not going to be a cushy stalls and proper tools. you just got to really. So it's a lot of fun, and I would encourage people to do it. But I would also caution you: it's not. It is not your 5-star photo safari.
Going from the show barn to the self-care boarding facility.
yeah, if that. You're actually the one that's in the pens that are just built and not even they're stationary. They're not even stationary. But it's really good time, and it's a really great learning experience. And I mean, not only professionally or you know, from a horse standpoint, but from a personal standpoint too, because Africa, there's like the saying is kind of hurry up and wait. Mm-hmm. So often, you know, like I went over there with this, all right, let's go. And we're going to do all these things. And I have all these ideas and let's roll. And you get there, you go, okay. and you know, and you don't want to step on anyone's toes. You don't want to come blowing in there like a wrecking ball, which anybody that knows me knows can do sometimes, often. So it was a really good learning experience for me to slow my roll a little and get a lot done. And every time I would show up, what's nice when I do show up in a place like that is, especially if I've been there prior and they kind of know me, everything starts to really happen fast because they know they have somebody there that take the ball and run with it, and they don't have to stop their important duties or their work for the day. So they just sort of roll with it. But there's a lot of stuff happens when one of us rolls into town. And I'm speaking for myself because I know how it goes for me, but I assume any of our other directors that have gone over and do projects, the same thing happens. You know, like they sort of wait for us to get there. I don't want it. That didn't come out right. They're not waiting on us to come save the day, but a lot of these projects do definitely lift up and lift off when one of us gets over there and helps out.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rox, for sharing all your knowledge and your stories. I don't know if we have any questions from anyone out in the interweb land. We gladly take them to answer them. And if not.
How about you, Sally? Do you have any other questions? We don't talk about this much.
I'm trying to think what else. Mine's always. I'm sorry?
I know you're meant to go out. Well, we were both meant to go out together recently. So do you have any thoughts or questions like for our hopefully pending trip?
Yeah, I've got a whole stack of stuff that I want to donate and bring with me. So yeah, we'll have to chat about that. So I guess if there are any horse people out there that have, I think it's mainly like the saddle pads and things like that, right? That you prefer.
Oh, yeah, that's actually something we didn't touch on other than the video is, tack is, it's no more expensive than it is here, but it's for South Africa, it's extremely expensive when you're doing a South African rand to dollar. So we do have a lot of partners that have helped us. Blue Steel has been one of great supporters that have helped us, and then Unicorn Tack, of course, they're up in KwaZulu-Natal. When I went there last time, they were fantastic. I had this. Always wanted to figure out how can we get somebody on board there for things like saddles. Like I can take certain things over from here, but saddles, no way. And over there, they're quite expensive. And I had someone had put me on to these folks, some other horse people, and they said, go talk to Chris at Unicorn Tack. I really think they can help you out. And this is another one of those stories where I'm standing in the middle of the 10,000 hectare Losey with no one around me and this beautiful untouched reserve. And I got a phone call from Chris from Unicorn Tack and telling me that she could get us, 6 saddles for, I can't even remember now. It was so ridiculous, the price that she was gifting us of the whole setup of the saddles and the bridles. And I got 6 saddles. I wish I could remember the price, but it was so silly what she was willing to do for us. And I was standing there getting, again, a bit emotional about her giving us this great deal. And she said to me, thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for coming to protect our heritage. And so, that you've come all this way to help us. And all I could think was here's this woman that just, impacted her business, gave us this super, super cut rate on quite a lot of tack. I'm talking about a couple $1,000s worth of tack, American dollars worth of tack, and she gave us for far under that. And she's thanking me. She was falling over herself to thank me for coming there. And it was so, I wish I could explain how that felt to be like, wow, there are people out there that want desperately to help. They just don't know that they can even help. Even there, like she had no idea that she could be so helpful to this cause. And yet being so grateful that we came there from all the way from America to help. So she was wonderful. That's kind of our help up in KwaZulu-Natal and for saddles. But you could see they gave us a whole tack full of everything we needed. And down in the Eastern Cape, we have Blue Steel as well as, it's just lost my train of thought. It'll come to me. But they just, they want to help. They just don't know that they can't, they don't know how they can help. But from here, we do take gear over all the time. We take all kinds of gear for rangers, even not the horse patrols. We take all kinds of super high-tech stuff for some of the guys. I've taken over coveralls, so they have like a second uniform up to the unit up in KwaZulu-Natal. Helmets, because I know it seems silly, you're chasing poachers and might catch a bullet, but it's still really important to wear a helmet. And I used to tell my guys that they would laugh at me and they're like, they shoot at us. And I'm all, okay, but if you fall off your horse and crack your head on a rock.
Yep.
So even there. And so then they got it, these were our fellas that we took quite a lot of gear. You can see the helmets there. I took all of those over, and these poor guys have, like 2 uniforms, and they're riding through the bush and there's ticks everywhere. And so we took them over a lot of other coveralls to wear, as well as some GPS trackers and the like. So there's a lot of things we can do. A lot of stuff I can't take. It's just too heavy and too cumbersome to take. But things like, I have a lot of requests from people saying, like you, what can I send? I think one of the easiest things and most rudimentary things that is helpful is like halters and lead ropes. And that seems, insignificant, and maybe like not the biggest donation a person could make to something like this, but it is something that you could get quite a lot of over, or even bridles. I've had people donate bridles that I've taken over. And there's a lot that can be taken. Unfortunately, our biggest expense is the saddles, and that's not going to happen, getting it over there. But, there's always, we always are happy to take financial donations, of course. And the cool thing about what we do at GCF, as you know, is you can kind of pick your project. It's not, you don't just put your money into some big fund, that you never know where your money goes to, and like, oh, I donated, but I don't know what happened. I know that we've gotten really good at it, and I'm very particular when I have funds that go with me that have been raised either through World Rhino Day, which is sort of World Rhino Day LA is sort of my sort of thing that I raise money specifically for the horse units. And that is my promise to my donors. Like, that is my promise to the people that come out and support. Of course, it's a lot of LA Zoo people, and a lot of people from the LA area. That's my promise to them, is like, you're going to see where your money's going. I promise you. I set out to take saddles, and this is the amount I need, and let's see what we can do. And then they bring it, and they come to the fundraiser, and I always have the money I need to go, and they see the pictures and the videos. And I love to show people that their money really is going somewhere. It's not just floating around, in some I helped conservation fund. That's very important to me, that people see that their money has made a significant difference to this fight. So yeah, that's something and I know we as GCF do a lot of that, but I'm really very particular about it. I would feel like I would disappoint people if I didn't show them that.
Right. Exactly. Good job. So we do have a few questions that have rolled in.
Okay.
Justine wants to know, how do we run patrols and for how long?
Ooh, that's, it sort of depends on which reserve it's at. And I know that we don't really control that. We're just like the support staff. And even though we had a unit that we did have a lot of say in, if you will, and a lot of support for, and I was there for a lot of it. It still really falls under, their anti-poaching, like platoon leader or whatever. I know that some of the guys up in KZN, they go out for several hours, but that's a huge area. And they also have multiple horses that they can rotate through. So I honestly don't know the details of how long they track for, but I know they go several kilometers. I do know down in EC, Eastern Cape, that those guys sometimes can only have time to maybe go on like a couple-hour fence patrol, sometimes up to 6 hours, 7 hours, depending. And of course, it depends a lot on the weather there. It's super, super hot. You're not going to go out and do a 7-hour patrol unless, you're starting at 5 a.m., but it does get extremely hot there. So it really does depend. I wish I could answer that a little bit better I wish I could answer that question a little better, but it certainly does depend on the APU's needs more than anything. So we never dictate that. Yeah, we let them sort of decide. And moving forward, with a unit that we are trying to get started up here in the near future, it will be a little bit more of a GCF. I don't want to say overseen, but we may have a little more hand in that. But even at that, we'd still let the terrain and weather and needs of the unit take precedent on how they run their patrols.
Right. Kristen is inquiring a little bit more. I know it's hard to tell since it's early and COVID has put kind of a stall on things, but for the upcoming volunteer opportunities that you were talking about, is there a certain level of horse knowledge folks need? She's just interested in learning a little bit more about what we can say so far about that particular program.
Okay. Yeah. I do know we're trying to set it up to be, anything from, I believe it was 7 days to 10 days. And then there's also obviously opportunities to extend the stays depending on your goals, I suppose. Listen, a lot of times it's hard for people to get away. I go for 5 or 6 weeks, but I'm usually building a unit from the ground up. that's infrastructure, maybe training rangers, maybe training horses. But for what we're trying to set up is going to be, hopefully we'll have our units sort of in place, and it'll be something like going to help the guys like the APU rangers themselves with the daily care of the horses. I don't think we'll be doing anything like breaking crazy 2-year-old, never been touched babies or anything like that. We wouldn't ask people to do that. But, if you have moderate horse experience, I did see the question, moderate horse experience is great because, there's plenty to do that to your comfort level. We're certainly not going to ask somebody that hasn't been riding their whole life to, break a baby. So it'll be a little structured to the individual in a way. I don't really want to say it's structured to the individual. It's really about the needs of the unit too. But sorry, I had to think about that for a moment because it's all still so new for us. But the idea is also to be able to do things like fence patrols with the guys, which is really, really important. That's not just some dumbed down, oh, we'll just take them on a fence patrol. It's really important that the fence patrols on the horseback, it's really important to do. It's really much quicker than the guys that have to do it on foot. It's an important aspect. Also, there's always the ability to go snare patrolling. And I have to say, I've been on snare patrols and it's tedious and it feels like, what am I even looking for? But it's really oddly and most horrifyingly gratifying when you find a snare that is a live snare that hasn't been tripped. When you find one that's live and still being dangerous to an animal, it's really amazing. And you feel like you've just done the most amazing thing for conservation. That's what these guys do every single day is snare patrols. And I also think we have the option in that, or not even the option. I think part of the package is, in fact, to also go on like a vet procedure or two, which is also one of the most amazing things you will ever see in your entire life. Whether it's a game capture, the very first day I set foot into Africa, I got to go on a Giraffe Relocation, which is one of the most hectic wild rodeos you will ever see in your life. And it's incredible how they do it. And I was so grateful to be a part of that. Also, but there's always tons of rhino procedures, whether they're doing an injury or a dehorning or putting a ankle monitor or, a monitor on them for tracking. So that's worth the price of admission right there, to be frank, to get to go on one of those wildlife procedures. They're incredible. So we are really hashing it out. This is all pretty new to us. This is an opportunity that just sort of presented itself to us. We've been thinking about it for a long time, but it's just presented itself to us in such a wonderful way that we are very much looking forward to it. So I'm not sure what our timeline looks like. Again, this 2020 pandemic has really put, I should have been there right now, for example. I should have been there in March, which got canceled with you, Sally. And then I had every plan in the world to go in October. My usual time of year I go is like October. So it's very sad for all of us. But I think I would say we're probably looking at, it's probably going to be towards the end of the year of next year, because we certainly don't want to say, hey, starting in March of 2021, and then get everybody excited and set this big program and then have to cancel it again. So I think we are going to, plus we need to get our foot on the ground and get our unit, up and running in the new place. So I'm sorry I was being wordy about that. I just want to give you as much information as I know and try to make sense of it. But watch our website, watch our page, watch the Facebook. We're certainly going to give you plenty of notice and explain the trip in full detail when we have it really, really solid. So thank you for that question. I'm sorry I was long-winded.
And then Kirk had a question asking if we had a presence in Ocala, Florida, which is the horse capital of North America, according to Kirk. I don't know. Us Southern Californians may argue with that.
I feel like Texas would have a little something to say about that too.
But kidding aside, our physical presence is here in Southern California right now. So, nope.
Yes, no, I do know Ocala is certainly horse country. Coming from the racehorse world myself, I know plenty about Ocala. So yeah, we don't. No, we don't have. We're all. I think all of us, with the exception of our guy Chris, who is our kind of field medic in Australia. We're all pretty Southern California based, yeah.
Most, yeah, one Arizona.
Oh yeah.
A couple in South Africa. Christian.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
But aside from the rest of the team, yeah. I think you're right. So excellent. All right.
Oh yes, I said yes. Hi, Kristen. Yes, thank you. No, definitely. Please keep watching. We're really looking forward to being able to. I mean, I'm personally looking forward to being able to share this experience with people. And I had my first conservation trip back in 2009 to do some elephant field work, and I always vowed to get back to South Africa because it was so amazing to be really hands-on with the community, to be really hands-on with the animals. And I knew I would never be able to go on a proper paid safari camp photo. I knew I could never go back like that. And so I just waited and waited. And that was in 2009. And GCF and Mike Veal and I connected at a Rhino conference, believe it or not, and had these wonderful, like-minded stories about South Africa. And I was very impressed with this young man that was starting this crazy, amazing global conservation forest. He'd already been doing it on his own, but to see this young guy start up this global conservation forest and ask me to be on the board, I knew I'd found my place. And we kept looking for a project for me, and nothing felt right for me. I just kept going, oh yeah, I could go, but anybody could go do that. What am I bringing to the plate that is special? And so in 2017, when this mounted unit situation popped up, it was so amazing to be the right person for the right job at that time. So I just totally want to share that with people, and especially horse people that are just finding us, about being able to do this in the field and marry your two loves, if you will, as a previous rhino keeper in a zoological facility, and with my lifelong background of horses, it was also a really nice way for me to give back. Horses have given me so much in my life, my career for a long time, and my childhood, a wonderful childhood with horses. So to be able to give that to people that have never experienced horses in Africa. And even these rangers, they didn't know how to ride when I showed up there. And so to see these fellas that have this love affair with their horses now is something I'm really proud to have been able to share my gift with them. So they have this great thing. So I would love other horse people to be able to go feel that and share their gifts. Everybody has a different story with horses, and they're going to bring a very different mindset and playing field and skill set, even than I am as a horse person, and even as you as a horse person. We all have our different things with horses.
Yep. Excellent. Thanks again, Rox, for spending your evening with us.
Sure.
If there aren't any other questions, we have a nice little parting video we'd like to share with everyone. And thank you all for joining us, and it will be recorded, and happy holidays to everyone.
Yes, thank you for stopping in.
I want my kids to feel the same joy I do when I see a rhino. Yeah!